Namaste, and welcome to our continuing series, Savitri is the Message, with our beloved
Narad.
Dr. Alok Pandey. We are going to begin today with the message, as we always do. And today it's the World Stare, Canto 1. And it's the second page of this World Stare, and I will begin reading, and then when I come to this word of mission, it's a different mission today. It's message, no? Message,
Yes.
Where's the message here?
We have to read from a few lines above. Aspects of being, dawned world outline, forms. Page 96.
Yes. Okay, right, got it. Savitri is traveling in these worlds that no one has ever traveled before. And he is having these tremendous experiences. And he sees that all experience is a single plan. It's the thousandfold expression of the One. And everything comes into his view. So let us see what happens now. Aspects of being, dawned world outline, forms that open moving doors on things divine, became familiar to his hourly sight. The symbols of the Spirit's reality, the living bodies of the bodiless, grew near to him, his daily associates. The exhaustless seeings of the unsleeping mind, letterings of its contact with the invisible, surrounded him with countless pointing signs. The voices of 1,000 realms of life mission to him her mighty messages.
So this is the Ashapati's experience. He has entered the cosmic consciousness. So the initial description is where he sees the entire world stare in a single glance. So the world stare is basically the ladder through which the one consciousness is lapsed towards inconscious. Through degrees, and each degree it lapses, it creates a plane of consciousness. So we can understand it like this, that let's take a human being who has to play a certain role. So a father who is a PhD scholar, when he has to teach his kindergarten child, so what does he become? He can't say that E equals to MC square. He has to say E equals to elephant. So he has come down several degrees. If he has to teach to a high school student, it will be different. To standard fourth student, it will be different. So this way the one consciousness started limiting itself. And through a process of self-limitation, now you see this process very interesting, starts in supermind. In supermind itself this starts. So thousandfold aspects of the one. But the difference is in supermind, when one aspect is put in front, you are aware of all the other aspects. But below that, slowly, one aspect becomes as if independent of the others. So that's how in the origin all the three gods are together, Trimurti as it is called. But as they come down, you will see they will have independent domains. Sometimes they seem to even not at fight with each other, but as if they are not acting in a perfect alignment. But again, if you see the total picture, you will see that it is perfect.
And it is in alignment.
It is in aligned. But outwardly, so what happens is this ladder of consciousness through which each aspect of the divine plunges towards inconscient till it becomes its opposite. The four aspects mainly, and they become its opposite. And then in the process of evolution, the same ladder becomes the steps to climb. So the Mahashakti steps of the Shakti, we may say. Now, in this climb, there is at each level, you encounter beings. So that's what we just read, the living bodies of the bodiless. So you encounter beings, forces, energies, and each of them has a message. So if you go to, let's say, Shiva and ask him for a message, he will say, come out of ignorance. That's his message. Slay desire, free yourself from all attachment. If you go to Krishna, he will say, follow the winding world march to its ultimate source. Because he is the evolutionary path. Now, these two are not opposite to each other, they are complementary to each other. Because at some point, you have to drop the ignorance to go beyond a certain point. So, each god will have a message. There are very beautiful stories about it in Indian thought. Once Saraswati and Lakshmi, they have to, who is greater? So Saraswati can give Vidya, knowledge, and Lakshmi can give money. This is an old fable. So Lakshmi is much more than that, and Saraswati is much more than that. So they want to, who is greater? So now it ends up by the whole, their quarrel, or so it seems, the debate, ends up by discovering that Saraswati is greater. Why? Because if you have the Vidya, you can have everything else. But if you have only wealth, if you lose it, then you just can't have, and some of the fundamental things of life you can't have. So there's the story. But basically each of them has a message. If you go to Lakshmi ji and ask, that's why in Sri Aurobindo, the mother, he describes each great goddess with her powers and how she responds to the human quest and how we should worship her. But at the end, he says, when each of these great powers can act freely in you in a state of perfect harmony with each other. That's the difficult part. Mahalakshmi's demand is beauty and harmony and love. Mahakali is also love, but her demand is very different. The impulses that are straightforward and frank, all there is no diplomacy, room for diplomacy. So each god and goddess has a message. So when Ashupati is entering these domains, each is giving his message. And much later in Heavens of the Ideal, we'll see that he could take one aspect and build a whole religion around it. That's what the great religions have been. They pick up one aspect and around it they build a total religion. Therefore it enters into falsehood, because you cannot hold one principle however high. That's how Sri Aurobindo puts it. One principle however high, you cannot make it absolute and say this is the path to be followed. That creates falsehood. That's what has happened to religions.
And later when Savitri meets the Madonnas,
yes, again,
they all have a certain power, yes, but they are lacking one. Each one is lacking something. That only Savitri can give them.
Savitri can bring, yes. Absolutely. So when one ascends, there are messages, there are suggestions, there are hints, and one can stop one's journey anywhere. So but Ashupati he is not interested in any message short of the complete redemption of earth nature. That no one so far comes to offer him. But he'll go through. You'll see in Heavens of the Ideal, each god proffered to him. You pick up this, an insignia and a symbol. You write your name in the book of the elect. And from here you govern the universe. That is the overmind creation Mother speaks about. So these are the messages, and we can read a little further. The heaven hints that invade our earthly lives, the dire imaginations dreamed by hell. Even, by the way, hell has a message. Look at it. Hell has a message. And the message is you can't go further with an impure consciousness. So what is hell? The red heat of hell. It is also a fire. Fires of hell. It purifies. But it's very painful purification. So that's the only thing. So dire imaginations dreamed by hell, because he'll come to that.
And he says also in another passage, none can enter heaven who has not passed through hell.
So this is the conception of purgatory.
Yes.
So you go through the purge where all your tendencies are exhausted, taken away.
Yes.
And if you look at it, earth passes through these stages. There is a stage in which earth consciousness acts like a purgatory. The worst comes out of human beings and it is purged. And then earth, washed of its ills, raises a fairer brow. So this is the process. And in human life also, same thing happens.
I sometimes think that even in Christianity, they did have heaven and a hell. But there was a purgatory also where you
Yes,
could
yes.
purify yourself
Yes.
to go back into heaven.
That was the mystic symbols are always the same.
Exactly.
It is the organized religion which is the problem. Mystic symbols are always the same. So, but once it comes to, and of course it is true that the complete truth that is always missing. Like at one place, Mother speaks of, she sees what was the message by these different great beings. So she says, Vedic rishis, they gave the message of immortality. Then she says, Buddha gave the message of permanence. Then she speaks of Christ. Christ gave the message of compassion. That from that height he is able to. And then he says, then I turn towards Sri Aurobindo, and Sri Aurobindo brings the message of perfection. Now you see, perfection is the totality. By its very nature, perfection cannot exclude anything. That's why the mother in one of the passages said, when human beings conceive perfection, they conceive it as a set of virtues. This has a relevance to what we are going to read.
Yes.
So they conceive of it as a set of virtues. Now there again, you start eliminating. For instance, courage, chivalry is a virtue. But kindness is also a virtue. So there are people who will eliminate chivalry and they will speak about kindness. So she says, if you follow that path, especially when virtues are really reduced to moral level, then you will end up eliminating almost everything in life. This is the big problem of perfection as we conceive.
And morality.
Yes, morality is man-made. He's used the word ill-fitting, coarse-spun dress.
Yes.
So it is needed at a stage of evolution, we need all this. But ultimately, perfection means the totality. And one example that I used to give, which we'll read here, very interesting. When this... I would say horrible thing. WWF had come. I don't know whether people have seen or not. World Wrestling Federation. So wrestling is a good thing. It's an art. Wonderful. I mean, we had Dara Singh and Ramamurthy. So I thought it'll be something like that. But when I saw it, it was horror. The kind of abusive language, the kind of, it was brutality. It was not wrestling anymore. It was brutality.
The attempt to kill someone.
Yeah. It is brutality. But of course, not only brutality, there is innate greed. So gladiators came alive. But what was worse was even gladiators, there is a chivalry involved. You win and you kill. Here it was all a drama, show, stage managed to, for money, for betting. Then it became one step still further, and that was WWE. Okay. So what I realized, but one thought flashed across me at that point of time. I said, see, look at this creation. This state exists in human beings, this kind of brutal, it's not really wrestling, it's something much worse. It's like a street fight.
But appealing to the mass.
Yeah, exactly. A mass consciousness. So I thought, the thought that occurred is that it has actually been transferred onto an arena. Do it here. Don't do it. I'm not sure whether after that, I mean, it could have been a subject of study, whether street fights have actually come down. There was a time, I am not sure whether people have observed street fights or not. But if you have lived in villages, you would have surely encountered, in Indian villages I'm saying, street fights. For no reason. Suddenly you'll see people fighting with each other. Now, what in the world play, when you put this thing, now this is street fight, but put in its place, in the total picture, you can still see its place and its sense. So this is something Ashwapati will experience here. Often we ask, why God created evil. And when you look at the large picture where you will see evil as a small little den, through which the soul must pass at some point and confront it to grow in strength and chivalry, then you understand the sense. But if only that is zoomed large and that's the ultimate thing, then it becomes out of proportion.
Yes.
So one of the things Sri Aurobindo says in one of his letters is, what does the psychic do to us? So he says something very beautiful and touching to me. He said, it gives the just measure and the right proportion to every emotion. It doesn't discard anything, gives it the just measure and the right proportion. This is what we are going to read. The dire imaginations dreamed by hell, which if enacted and experienced here, our dulled capacity soon would cease to feel. You see, Sri Aurobindo at once is communicating several layers of truths. One is that there is a realm which is dark, where things are much worse than what you can imagine on earth. Why? Because when they come on earth, they get modified. Because something is there in man, the psychic presence. But equally, the heavenly impulses, they also get modified because the psyche, or rather ennobled. And one of the things the supermind is going to do, I was very surprised when I had read long back, decades back. She says the good is becoming better and the evil is becoming worse. So it is like seemingly a no holds barred, but for the final triumph. So
and we do see here that there are nations that don't have that sensitivity.
Yes.
And they need more and more dramatic actions, even pain.
Yes, but
greater and greater
he's also
pain.
reminding us, if you do this path, you will cease to feel. You see, this is the implication, this one line, our dulled capacity, as such it's a dulled capacity, soon would cease to feel. So I often advise when people ask about, pornography, for instance. Children, what's wrong? They want to quarrel on, moral ground and this ground. So if you look at into the mind of man, there is a perpetual, nobody can really be called as a chaste person if you look into the mind. I say it's not about that. But see, what happens is it reduces love to a level where you cannot really feel natural emotion. You have to combine it with some kind of very crude and gross pleasure. Then only you will feel drawn. So actually it dulls the capacity to feel. Actually, it does that. And same thing with many of these aspects. So when we live in that kind of atmosphere, it dulls our capacity. So people there are prone to lie, to cheat, to deceive, because they don't care about what you may be feeling. And you will see it even I've seen brothers and people who are very close to you. They will end up cheating you and do it nonchalantly. So I often wonder what kind of evil, where does it spring from? Because the capacity has gone. Ordinarily, you have this much that, okay, this person is being troubled by me. That's too much. But at least people are selfish, but they don't do it at the expense of others. But here you just can't, become completely dull. Or our mortal frailty could not long endure. It will just die. So this cult of horror films, and I have seen, I must mention that because, the audience, I have actually encountered many people who have breakdowns, whose history when I go into it's watching horror films. And why they have gone into watching horror films has more to do with this constant dullness of tamas state. So when you are in tamas, you need something extremely hard to make you feel alive. And many of these serials which have started coming, extreme things, because you're progressively dulling. So you're not enough, like in drugs, this one can experience with drugs. So drugs started with some of these, things like cough syrups and petroleum, and then they discovered some chemicals, amphetamines or things. Then Coca-Cola, cocaine was there initially. LSD, all this. Then what happens to people who keep on taking it? After a point, it's like alcoholic, it's no more making him giving the high. So in extreme situations, people go to cobra bites. Now this is not a myth. They actually take it on the tongue. It's not even like, and they survive when they take those small, because why they use cobra is because cobra has those elapids, fangs, as they, if you know how to control, I'm not trying to teach anything.
Please.
Never try. I'm in fact saying that, there are people, you can control to an extent the poison it will inject. You can't do it with other snakes because of their kind of rapid fang. And then slowly they increase their capacity, even the body picks up because they don't get a high. So it dulls the capacity. It's a very important thing, the message. Yes. This is the message, that if we follow that route of hell, which is horror films, pornography, let me be very explicit, and such things, it will dull the capacity to feel to an extent where you won't feel stimulated unless there is something very artificial and stuff like that. So this is the...
And you can't see anything anymore in movies
And
that doesn't have this.
It has nothing to do with morality. It is pure science. So just to be understood as science. If one wants to dull the capacity and see how it works against spirituality, because spirituality is about heightening your capacities and refining it. To an extent that sitting in one place you can feel the pain of somebody who is far away. Shubindu sitting in one room is experiencing the pain of somebody in concentration camp. That is the capacity that spirituality can bring in. And its opposite is where even my own pain I cannot feel. That's what the mother spoke about, the lunar races. And she said they are vicariously insensitive to pain, their own, and therefore of others. So they devise such torture methods which you just can't imagine because you don't feel it. So here it is, this is the action of hell upon human beings, just to remember. Or our mortal frailty could not long endure, were set in their sublime proportions there. Now you see in the entire totality of the world play. What is a sublime proportion? I take this example of cooking a dish. You can't conceive of a dish, not talking of sweets, but normal food, without salt in it, isn't it? Put salt a little more, and a little more, and a little more. This is called sublime proportion. The moment you do it beyond a point, that's why in sattvic food, people tend to, start preferring a kind of food. Rajasic food, they want more and more. And tamasic food, stale, rotten, all this. So, this sublime proportion means this. Even a little bit of hell helps man to grow in strength, to put it this way. That's why none can reach heaven who has not passed through hell. But if you start loving hell, or worse still, if hell starts loving you,
you won't reach heaven.
Then pinned down to unholy soil,
Yes.
marked missing in the register of the gods.
Yes.
But then finally, since we are talking all this, but there is a guardian power, there are hands that save. Calm eyes, divine regard the human scene. Otherwise, in that same passage, hell lets loose its companies. Look at, in the Nazi, what kind of horror things they were enacting, and people were doing it. Nobody felt that this is something not to be done. Recently, one North Korea spy, his interview was coming. So he says, they are so hypnotized.
Exactly.
Till he finally escaped because he realized his own life is in danger. And now he has become a parrot. South Korea he lives in. So this is what is called as the drama of hell. But in sublime proportion, see, look at even North Korea, for example. He's doing its job. Small little country is keeping the balance of the world. Thanks to that country, Japan, India, US, they are all aligning together.
Yes.
So in its right proportion, and everybody knows it, ultimately if it comes to a real war, except that if it releases nuclear weapons suddenly, it won't take more than half an hour for these three nations to come together, even one of them to decimate it. But it keeps the balance of the world. This is the beauty of, the creation. So he says, were set in their sublime proportions there. They're lived out in their self-born atmosphere. They resume their topless pitch and native power. In that domain, they are very active. So one should be very careful. There are domains where evil is very active. That's why on earth this traditional understanding was, don't go out after it is late night. These forces are very active. And that's why you'll see many of these snakes slithering come out. You'll rarely hear a case of a snake bite during daytime. But you'll hear snake bites most often. And I've seen it actually. Because this is the night. The hostile forces are on the prowl. All the beasts who hunt Many of them at night they will start prowling because they get supported and strengthened. That's in Mahabharata, Ghatotkach. Night time their powers are active. So certain things don't go to certain places because you will get their atmosphere. So this is what is the age-old advice. Their self-born atmosphere. If you enter into contact with them, then they draw you, suck you and start. So self-born. They resume their topless pitch and native power. Otherwise in human beings they are invariably diluted because there is something in us and human beings are in contact with others. So in human beings evil becomes very prominent when nobody is at watch. Because then it can come to its some pitch. But still because of the presence of soul, emotions, feelings, they are such a wonderful thing. And it's very unfortunate that civilizations develop by suppressing these feelings. These feelings can really counter all these very dark, strong. They resume the topless pitch, they're fortifying stress upon the soul. So here he's saying, what do they do? It's like a tonic, bitter tonic. So when the soul goes through it, then it grows in strength. If it comes out, it will come out. But very often it can get caught. But it has to go through it.
And alcohol is usually bitter.
Yes, it is bitter. And medicines, you treat it with still more bitter medicines.
Yeah. One gets a taste for it and drinks more and more.
They've also made it, one of the greatest discoveries they made was because they realized because of taste people don't take. So gin came out. Neither you can see it as alcohol nor you can taste it. And you mix it. No ideas, okay? But I'm just saying that human mind has gone to what extent to capture the minds of people. No, I know it myself because, in Air Force, then I saw somebody taking, I said, "Arey, ma'am, aap nibu pani pi rahe hain?" I actually asked because, it looked like water and there was lemon floating on top with that, So I said, "Arey, ma'am, you are taking lemon, nibu pani like this. This is not lemon water. You don't know? You are an officer. What is there for an officer to know? It is gin. You never tried it?" I said, "My God, I must try it." That was I didn't know this gin is spelled G-I-N, but it is actually D-J-I-N. So, see, this is fortifying stress on the soul. This is the story of the wounded healer, those who have gone through that dark patch in life, the dark night of the soul.
Yes, exactly.
When they come out, that's what Mother meant by a converted asura. When and if one comes out, one is far, far stronger, fortifying stress, then nothing really disturbs you. But if you have not, you try to keep, safe from all these realms. Their fortifying stress upon the soul bit deep into the ground of consciousness. The passion and purity of their extremes. The absoluteness of their single cry in these realms. So where you will see the passion and the purity of their extreme. And the absoluteness of the single cry and the sovereign sweetness or violent poetry. Look at sovereign sweetness, Ashutosh, Shiva, the benignant. Violent poetry, the dance of Rudra. Of their beautiful or terrible delight. And
so he is seeing all of these things and experiencing
simultaneously.
All of these things simultaneously.
Panoramic view of the whole thing.
I'll just read a few more lines and then we'll go to the next one.
Yeah.
All thought can know, or widest sight perceive, and all that thought and sight can never know. All things occult and rare, remote and strange, were near to heart's contact, felt by spirit sense.
So this, even that line of beautiful or terrible delight.
Yes.
This conception that behind everything there is a delight, including in that extreme. So their beings of that world, they find delight in this. You'll be very surprised how a person like Genghis Khan, his idea of pleasure. So his idea of pleasure was, he will make a big pit fill it with, like catching an elephant. And when the elephant, and cover it up with thorny bushes. And when an elephant will fall into it and trumpet because he's in pain, then he would experience joy. But this is the perverse kind of, extreme. But still, the terrible delight. It takes this form, completely opposite form. So all things are there, and all these Ashupatis now experiencing. So there are two ways we can experience. Experience we will, but two ways. One is objectively through actual events and circumstance, and subjectively by coming in contact with the spirit sense. That's what Sri Aurobindo says in one of the aphorisms, that if you leave it to God, He will exhaust your sins easily, subjectively, quickly you will go through that process. But if you insist on your own way, then also it will happen. But it will be through much suffering and pain. These are the two alternatives left. So he is experiencing them by spirit sense. He could sense the atmosphere, sense the trademark of hell, all this.
162.
Yes.
I'll begin at 161.
Wow.
Our mind lives far off from the authentic light, catching at little fragments of the truth in a small corner of infinity. Our lives are inlets of an ocean's force. Our conscious movements have sealed origins, but with those shadowy seats, no converse hold. No understanding binds our comrade parts. Our acts emerge from a crypt our minds ignore. Our deepest depths are ignorant of themselves. Even our body is a mystery shop.
Lovely this is.
As our earth's roots lurk screened below our earth, so lie unseen our roots of mind and life. Our springs are kept close hid beneath, within. Our souls are moved by powers behind the wall. In the subterranean reaches of the spirit, a puissance acts and recks not what it means. Using unthinking monitors and scribes, it is the cause of what we think and feel. The troglodytes of the subconscious mind, ill-trained, slow, stammering interpreters, only of their small tasks routine aware, and busy with the record in our cells, against all higher truth their stuff rebels. Only to titan force their will lies prone.
We just, I think, jumped onto the other page.
Sorry.
It doesn't matter. But it gelled very well. Actually, it went very well.
But I'll finish.
Yeah.
Concealed in the subliminal secrecies, mid an obscure occult machinery, capture the mystic Morse, whose measured lilt transmits the messages of the cosmic force.
So this is in the kingdoms of the little life. So there are three occult sources of action within us. Very often we get a suggestion and we accept it and say, I felt like doing it. I thought like that. But we don't realize that we are just a small little fragment of the cosmos. So initially he describes that, our mind is little corner of the boundless mind. Our lives are inlets of a mighty force. And it's all coming from there. It's circulating in the atmosphere. Now because of either tuning, constitution, habit, past life, evolution, whatever way we want to, we are tuned to certain kinds of forces. So there are three types of forces which basically operate within us. One is the subliminal. Subliminal is below the threshold of a waking mind. And subliminal is open to the universe. For example, suggestion, the power of suggestion. The classic example of subliminal messages is the power of advertisement. So you see, and that's why they use sometimes symbols, because even reading is difficult. And you associate the symbol with a brand or something. Very subliminally, it has gone into the subconscious, from there it rises, and we accept it. Or whatever is going on in the universal mind at a given point of time, it tends to enter us. I don't know whether people have experienced it or not. When the corona whole thing started, and the TV was flashing all this, and at least I know about myself, Mother's Grace, having read Mother and Shiv, it was very clear that this is, don't believe in all this and
it's a hoax.
Live with faith. Yeah, live with faith. That's it. But I remember very concretely when I went and I was coming from my house. This is very beginning. I think lockdown had just started. March end lockdown had started, 2020 and or 19, first lockdown. And I remembered within few days, as I was coming with all those police checking and everything, I suddenly experienced as if something was trying to literally throttle the neck. It was, I could recognize that it's fear, but fear doesn't come from here. It is as if a force is attacking and trying to throttle, because it was so powerful. Night, no movement of human beings. It had actually created a wonderful space for itself. Whatever we may say, but human beings bring in that element, You meet each other, hi, hello. Whatever you may say, it tends to, make you feel comfortable. But suddenly at night, if you come out in those days when there is total lockdown, so there was this fear which was circulating, floating in the atmosphere. So very consciously on that night itself, I remember completely rejecting it from every spot, because I could see that this is what is going to attack. That time there were very few cases. Within days, hundreds, thousands, 10,000, lakhs, beyond madness, absolutely. Now you see, now what is the collective suggestion? That's why this, yesterday India completed 100 crores vaccination. So now, why I'm mentioning is that if you look at it from one point of view, it's a political stunt. Well, it is a political stunt. But look at the way it can be used. Now everybody is celebrating, because the people there, I am sure this has been done very deliberately. So one, they lit up number of places which created a kind of balance, different cultures, religions, all these places were lit up, and people are celebrating 100 crore people vaccinated. Now the suggestion is, we are good, we are already, gone beyond the...
we can't get it anymore.
We can't get it because, herd immunity. So while on one side, and I don't deny the political aspect of it, but I also have to agree and accept that there is something very powerful way of giving a message which for a change is good. You are using a incidence to, while exalt yourself, but at the same time you are helping everybody by this kind of mass message.
I want to share something from my late teens. It was the first experiment in subliminal suggestion. I went to a movie, and it was a good movie, and just before the intermission, faster than your eye could see, they were flashing Coca-Cola, Coca-Cola, Coca-Cola. At the intermission, everyone went to buy a Coke and popcorn and whatever else. And they caught Coke on that, and they had to stop it.
Yeah. Also because they found Coke has a interesting history.
Exactly.
But the power of subliminal suggestion acts to an extent which we can't even imagine. So it is done through below the threshold mind. Your waking consciousness is not aware. And it acts at every level. It acts on the physical level. It acts, at a vital level. It acts at an emotional level. It acts at a mental level. So all this is one source of action. It pushes us to act. The second is subconscious, deep-rooted things. Habit, they spring up. In the very cells, they are imprinted inside, which Mother had to fight, deep-rooted. That's why at one place he says, there is an animal hiding in everybody. So, why be vigilant? Because normally, the animal is in the background, he's tied, the master has given it his own share of food, a very nice talking to each other. The moment you get an opportunity, this animal springs out. Where does it come from? It comes from the subconscious terrains.
Yes.
Sometimes it'll come up in dreams, subconscious, these images. And the third, but the good news is that there are also superconscious messages. Superconscious messages will pull our heart towards another aspect. They'll take us towards courage, faith, the high aspiration, suddenly daring the impossible. So all these are superconscious messages. They all come from within. But here, because he's talking about the little life, he's primarily speaking about the subconscious messages, and he's using a very modern image. The modern image is Morse code. So Morse
Mystic
code is the
Morse,
telegram.
yes.
So there is tuck tuck here, and there are letters which are coming. So what do these forces do? They do knock knock. Who is there? I am a helpful person. But the moment they enter, the mind gets suggestions, the heart gets suggestion, and you are caught in that.
Yes.
So that is a Morse code. Morse code is we can use the word, it's like an occult machinery. Something is going on. They are not speaking in that word, but they are just spreading their net. And if you are caught in that net, you immediately start speaking, stuttering, stammering. Have you noticed something very interesting regarding stammer? He has used the word stammer also. Stammer out. I'm not speaking of children who are born with this. Have you noticed that sometimes people begin to stammer when they are very angry?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Fear, anger, it's known. Interview anxieties when they are anxious. Why? Because they derail the smooth process of speech. So these are forces which act, and if you understand it, it becomes so easy to handle, because now you know the real principle which is behind. So he uses this beautifully, that our springs are kept close, hid beneath, within. So this idea of a so-called, oh, I'm a free person, I do what I feel like. You don't feel like. You are being made to feel like. I do what I think. You don't think. You are being made to think. I will do my own will, not your will. Somebody else's will. We don't know whose will. So it requires a tremendous discernment to really, that's why developing the discerning capacities to remain conscious, and if nothing else, offering to her, so that even if you are ignorantly doing something, it is connected to her constantly. So this is the description. Our souls are moved by powers behind the wall. Poor soul has no choice because nature drags it, so either it will leave, or it says okay because it's in the car and driver has suddenly gone on auto mode and not listening to the owner. So sometimes the soul does leave when this kind of an extreme things happen. In the subterranean reaches of the spirit, the lower ranges, a puja acts and recks not what it means. So it's puja at that level, it's powerful. Some of these demonic cults, they possessed human mind, that I'm forgetting the name of the cult, Johnstone, or where in US 700 people drank poison and they died. Because this man told them that world is going to come to an end, and today is the last day. Those who drink with me will go straight to heaven. How they came to know is some children didn't take it and some had a skeptic. That's why the utility even of skeptic mind. It has its place. So that we don't just get carried away by any kind of suggestion coming from anywhere. Skeptic mind helps us against WhatsApp universities, dished out stuff. Unfortunately, it overdoes. It starts doubting the supreme mind itself. So, it is the cause, using unthinking monitors and scribes. Unthinking monitors and scribes are the brain, nerves. Unthinking. The brain cannot think itself. It builds up thought. But if you cut a section of brain itself, neurons they don't generate thought. But a certain combination circuits, they like computer. Computer is an unthinking scribe. You put the type and computer shows all the things. Like smartphone, unthinking. It picks up how many times you have used, and sometimes can create problems. Because when I write, sometimes have a wonderful day in the morning. So that it picks up very well. So it's very easy for me. But at night when I write, and it automatically takes to a wonderful day. Or sometimes if I correct, have a wonderful sleep. That sounds very awkward. So it somehow doesn't pick up restful sleep or peaceful sleep. I don't know why. So, unthinking monitors and scribes. It is the cause of what we think and feel. We think it's me, but it's not me. The troglodytes of the subconscious mind. Troglodytes are the cave dwellers, the primitive. We think they are gone. No, Shubhendra speaks of the commercial barbarism. The Philistine is alive in us. The cave dweller. He is there inside, waiting for his cave mentality. When suddenly you don't know, he'll pick up some lathi and say, come, cave dweller. Ill-trained, slow, stammering interpreters. Only of their small tasks, routine aware and busy with the record in ourselves. So what does the computer do when you're sending an email? You may be sending an email for some message for somebody to create massacre people. But it is a faithful servitor. It picks up the message and passes on. So now even there, the good news is they are trying to intercept, which is a good sign. That it's a sign that symbol of man's ability to intercept the messages. That's how this technology has come into being.
Yes.
Can we catch it before it can reach? Concealed in the subliminal secrecies, mid an obscure occult machinery of which we have no idea, this inner technology, capture the mystic modes whose measured lilt transmits the messages of the cosmic force. Measured lilt. A whisper, just 5 lines, so we'll read and finish. A whisper falls into life's inner ear. Outwardly, nothing has happened, but something within the inner being has heard.
And we hear it.
Yeah?
We hear it. We catch it.
Yeah. And echoes from the dun subconscious caves. There are people who are moved to kill people in that state. I know of someone, he says, I couldn't help it. I was caught up by a irresistible frenzy. And then I asked, what kind of frenzy? He says, I couldn't help. Irresistibly a thought was coming. I'm not going to name the thought, but it was like, do it, do it, do it. Now he heard, many people are not, able to hear it and they are moved like that. People go mad because of this. And echoes from the dun subconscious caves, speech leaps. You end up speaking. How many times have we not regretted?
What we
Silence
said.
is the golden rule. Why did I say? I wish. Life is made up of a series of I wish I had not. I wish I had not. But the arrow once shot can be taken out. But speech once uttered.
Mother says to us, wait for a moment before you speak. Just
Because
for
it
a
goes
moment.
into a region where you can't take out.
Yes.
You may utter 100 after that very soothing comments, but it has gone inside. Okay, so speech, one should be careful what one is speaking. Don't speak anything which is going to create disharmony, hatred, and anger. Don't lend the speech to these things. Once people asked Alok, that we are trying to make a course to create potential speakers. By the way. So they wanted you have been speaking, so what is we want to hold a course. I said nothing will work. Tell people to get over. Make sure that their speech expresses only these things and nothing else. If they do it 10 days sincerely. For instance, you take that, okay, I'm going to express truth. Or I'll remain silent. Or you take it that I'm not allowing any jealousy, anger, hatred to come through the mouth. That is the sadhana of speech. You can create speakers who will deceive. But that's not the point. He deceived with wisdom, with virtue slew the soul. Orators, there are orators like that, Hitler. So there is a difference between oratory and spiritual speech.
And this is why Mother spoke so strongly about not lying.
Yes.
Especially to the Orvillians who met her every week. She said, if you lie, I cannot work with you.
So he says, speech leaves, thought quivers, the heart vibrates. You see people in anger? The will, speech leaps, thought quivers, the heart vibrates, the will answers, and tissue and nerve obey the call. And later on we get sick. Our lives translate these subtle intimacies. All is the commerce of a secret power. And I would suggest for everybody, please read the 2 pages passage that follow. A thinking puppet is the mind of life.
Exactly.
Here he explains why there is incoherencies of fate. Everything is not karmic law. That you were going, you slipped, and you met with an accident, oh, karmic law. No, you were unconscious. As simple as that. It is instant karma if you like. So unconsciousness, so thinking puppet. So we are used by these agencies, and unfortunately we lend ourselves to their workings, and our lives becomes the mess that it is. The only good thing about the mess is, as Shubhendra says, why the unseen is allowed. Because when we are in a mess, then we say, Lord, make a nice porridge or khichdi out of, gruel out of it. So then he says, okay, what is the material? All this he sees. He adds a little tadka of his love. No, it is tadka. It is, you take ghee and it's a saute. What is it called? Put a little jeera and then you put it, and don't know, everything is transmuted. What is smell? So when you call the Lord, he doesn't do anything. He is always of a retiring predisposition. He says, what is the material? So we tell him, sir, this is the mess I have made. Okay, fine. He puts that little ghee, which is luminous intelligence, and the jeera, which is his love, and suddenly life is lit up with a fragrance and changes everything. Okay.
We have only a few minutes left. If there are any questions, please ask them.
What was the page number of that latest part that you were...
I think you are still with it.
162. 161 and 162. You're welcome.
Okay, I think we can stop here.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Namaste. Namaste.